I will remember Boosh. Will Boosh remember me?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, August the 6th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord. As always, link in the description of the podcast. 100% free to join. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And we're off and running here on a Wednesday show as we bid adieu to a Toronto Raptors mainstay for the last 7 years. My God, where has the time gone? Chris Boucher is a Boston Celtic. Bleh, yucky, gross. And here to talk about it is Katie Heindl. We have some mailbag questions coming up later on, but the crux of today's show will be remembering Chris Boucher, the last remaining member of the 2019 NBA champion Toronto Raptors. Katie, how the hell are you? How are you processing all of this information? Boucher out and going to the damn Celtics of all teams.
I'm all right. It is nice to have you back. To chat.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's great having you back on the show.
First time we've been back together in podcast land, so that's good. It is sad, especially when you put it like that. I mean, I know, intellectually he was the last part of that roster, but it feels very different to say, okay, that this like iteration we always kind of use as a touchstone, right, and a benchmark is now gone.
Yeah, it's, I think Boucher has been the last remaining member for like a year and a half now since Pascal Siakam got traded. It's, this isn't new that the sort of era has been washing away to the sands of time for, a little while now. But yeah, it's to lose that last connecting piece to 2019 very much into a new frontier. And you hope that this coming year, there are greener pastures ahead for the Raptors. I think the last few years, obviously, have very much not been that. It's been quite a bit of drought and despair and all of that. But I will say, I think kind of getting into my sort of big overall takeaway on Chris Boucher's time in Toronto. And we'll get into some favorite moments of his and things like that as we go throughout the show. But I do think the sort of pull away for me, when I think about Chris Boucher, what is his like defining sort of lasting impact with the Raptors? It's that during a pretty fallow period for the franchise where things did not go right a lot of the time and very often the vibes were pretty rancid, he was maybe more than anybody else a dude who provided random little pops of joy on January nights in the middle of the regular season. And I will forever cherish those little pops of Chris Boucher going absolutely nuclear on some team's bench and coming in and scoring 24 points on 8 shots or whatever it was. He did it a lot this past season as well before they shut him down because he was helping them win their minutes too much when he was on the floor. But that, I think, to me, is Chris Boucher. Look, he was never someone who was providing like huge tangible impact on winning. He was never someone who had big playoff moments or anything like that. But there is something to be said for the dude who makes the regular season more fun, make the regular season matter more, I say. And Chris Boucher was a dude, going even back to like Tampa, where he had like a 38-17 game, I believe, in a loss to the Bulls. I don't remember they lost to the Bulls. I just remember Chris Boucher had 38-17 in a game. Do you feel similarly about Chris Boucher? Do you have any other sort of lasting feelings on his time and impact with the Raptors?
Just all those frenetic pops, and the games. Again, it would be these kind of like middle of the season, middle of the week games, not particularly must win, but they always felt like he would like come out for some reason and just inject them with a real Chris Boucher sensibility, which was some wiliness, erraticness. The energy would kind of go off the charts, and he would just decide like, this is the game I'm going to go off in. His crazy like acrobatic dunks. I know we say like someone like John Morant, you think of him when you think of who's maybe the most agile and aerodynamic and kind of approaches dunking a little bit like a gymnast, but Chris Boucher did that too. A lot of the time when he really got going, like you kind of didn't understand how he was able to contort his body like that through the air and, land in the way that he did. And I think a lot of those moments where you're just like jaw dropping a little bit, like, did he really do that on a Tuesday night in February?
Yeah.
Pre All-Star?
The Hornets or whatever. Yeah.
I know, there was just a lot of heart and effort. And I think that is what kept him around for such a long time. And then it does feel like a bummer when it's, that's not enough. I know we're going to talk more about it. I know we both collectively can't speak well of Boston, but I do think it is a good move for Chris Boucher.
Yeah, I think that is a completely fair thing to say, as much as it pains me to say it. But on that note, Katie, I have to, now that we've reunited, it's been a little while. It's, yes, it's been a hot summer, temperature-wise, but it hasn't really been a hot summer take-wise for me, because I've been sitting here on the sidelines. I have to ask you, does Chris Boucher signing with the Boston Celtics taint his legacy with the Toronto Raptors? Hot take Heindl, take it away.
Are you waiting to cue the flames?
No, there we go.
No, sorry. I can't conjure a take for this. I can't. It doesn't taint his legacy. I think
Sad. I'm taking the flames off.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know. I think the saddest thing to me is that for a lot of people, Chris Boucher's legacy is going to be a non-starter conversation. He's not necessarily going to fit into the broader discussions of legacy, because in some ways, to me at least, it does feel like he never really got his proper due, or proper start. This was a guy who kind of rode the bench for a lot of seasons and was like very foundational and I think necessary on the bench, especially when you've got so many young players, really green players cycling in and out of there over the last few seasons. So I think how formative he probably was to impart some of that identity that we're talking about, this like championship blueprint that may or may not be gone now. Like you and I haven't talked about this yet. I don't know if you've covered it and like catching up, but like with Masai being gone too, this is like a bigger gap in identity and legacy and all that kind of stuff. So I think for Boucher to go now, it feels quite fitting, because I think he's still got like quite a few years ahead of him in his career, and he could do really well in Boston, in that he's kind of the like, they're such a mechanical team, right? Yeah. Like you kind of know what you're getting with them. It's very rote, it's very systematic. And what Boucher can offer is like a bit of a blip and an anomaly in that system where they may need it most. So if they kind of deploy him the right way and let him actually work in the way that he wants to and plays best, I think that's going to be really great for them. He'll be such an asset. I wonder if that
an asset to them, Katie, because he's like one of their only players taller than 6'5" on the
team.
True. So
that's a great point. That's a great point. I wonder if his legacy will be one of these ones where we talk about more in retrospect of like, we didn't really know how good he was, or this kind of sad thing we do of like patting ourselves on the back of like, he had to go somewhere else to get this good or get this kind of recognized, which is a sad reality.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we'll get into it. I think my sort of views on Chris Boucher as like a player who can impact winning basketball, I think, are pretty clear. Like that was never the thing that I tuned into Chris Boucher basketball, rooting for or hoping for or expecting. He had his issues, right? He was, erratic defensively. He would have moments where, just like the 3-point shot refused to fall for long stretches. He was not exactly the most connective player passing wise and all of that. But I do think your point stands that, the sort of off kilter stuff he brings to the table, just like the physical marvel that is his body moving the way it does is like something to behold. And I think it will look, I think he is going to look a lot, different and sort of against the backdrop of the Celtics. I think it's going to stand out a little more when he was largely playing on a team that tried to build the whole plane out of guys with weird movements and size and length and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that point stands for sure. And as much as I wish I could come here and say, and fill in the void from Hot Take Heindl and say it's disgusting he's going to the Celtics, he's a traitor, he should be tarred and feathered and never given an ovation when he returns to Toronto. Amir Johnson went to the Celtics after he left the Raptors, and we like Amir Johnson just fine. So it'll be fine. The Celtics are probably going to lose like 55 games this year. That's like one of my sort of core beliefs is they are going to try to lose as much as possible. And as it turns out, as far as fun ways to lose 50-something games, giving Chris Boucher a bunch of run, pretty high on the list and ways to do that in an entertaining fashion. So congrats to Celtics fans for their incoming poor season, just getting that much more entertaining. We're going to come back on the other side, and we're going to talk a little about Chris Boucher's best moments, stuff we're going to remember, flashpoints of Chris Boucher being Chris Boucher the only way that he could be. We're going to come back and do that coming up in just one sec here on the show. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Game Time. Have you ever decided last minute you want to take in a ball game with friends or family? I do this sometimes with Katie, where we go watch baseball. And it's the best because I've converted Katie into thinking baseball is good. It's one of my great life achievements, and she's not on camera to argue or quibble with that at all, which is great. You can save money on tickets. You can splurge on food. Hot dogs are great. We love dogs, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group to come with you because Game Time makes it possible to do that. I got to say, one of the things I'm most excited about now that I have a young son is taking him eventually to baseball games. It was one of my favorite things to do when I was a kid. Can't wait to take the little guy. Maybe not this year, but hopefully as soon as next summer. And Game Time is going to be a great way for me to do that without breaking the bank. They're the official ticketing partner of Locked on MLB, and it makes it easier to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. Go check them out. They got zone deals, seat views right from the app, all that beautiful stuff. And they take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Do it with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked on NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Back at it here with Katie Heindl from Basketball Feelings as we continue to remark upon the life and times of Chris Boucher with the Toronto Raptors. He is not dead. He's still a guy. He's out there. But his time with the Raptors is over. I asked for a couple mailbag questions, and this one stands out pretty well. Matt T asks simply, what are your favorite Boucher moments? Katie, what you got for me? Let's just go. Let's play tennis back and forth with Boucher tales as long as we can go here.
But I don't have any specific moment. I think mine are all, maybe you'll jog my memory because sure. I think when I do think of Boucher, and this isn't a slight against Boucher, but they've become an amalgamation. This is partially my pre-pandemic brain, I think.
100%.
And not
Nothing
being able
since
to be
2020 is identifiable to me
definitive.
In time. It's just all part of a goo.
Yeah. My goo brain doesn't really help celebrate Boucher in the way that I want to. I can think of a few moments where he would kind of do these like big theatrical dunks that we're talking about and the reactions he'd get from the bench, because Boucher otherwise is like a pretty quiet figure, right? And I think sometimes he also got painted as a little bit of a solitary figure, and I don't necessarily think that was true. But yeah, when he would kind of do those things and they'd flip to the bench and you'd see their reactions. Some of those were my favorite things. People just like losing their minds. A lot of like Kyle Lowry losing his mind.
100%. Yeah. There is one game from this year that I think stands out maybe as like his best game as a Raptor or most memorable game as a Raptor. And I'm not going to say it's that 38-17 game against the Bulls because it was during the most depressing time, both of the Toronto Raptors history and frankly of my own life. If I recall, March 2021, bad vibes all around, if I can recall correctly. Either way, this year, the game against the Kings, Vince Carter night, that is a game that is, obviously like DeRozan versus RJ Barrett, the sort of student of Vince Carter and the student of DeMar going at it on Vince Carter night. That was a whole big thing. Raptors win in overtime. One of the highlight games of the season. Chris Boucher in that game had 24 points on 9 of 13 shooting and was, outside of RJ Barrett, the best player on the floor for the Raptors. And, it's very cool that the other Canadian guy on the team got to have that moment in that game on Vince Carter night. That's going to stand out to me as like an individual game. I still think for me, and people listen to this show, have listened to the show for, most of the run of the show, will know that one of the dumber things I've ever said out loud or on the internet was during a game back in the 2019-20 season, the title defense year. There are a couple weeks into the season, and I believe Serge Ibaka had just gotten hurt. I think it was right in that early part of the season. And maybe Kyle got hurt around this time as well. And they were on the road. They were playing the Lakers at Staples. And in that game, Chris Boucher came in the first quarter and stunk it up. Like, he hadn't played much that year. I think it might have been his first game of the season or first extended run of the season. And he was really bad in the first quarter. And I tweeted when I was still doing that at the time, I know we all want this to work because he's Canadian, but I just don't think Chris Boucher is an NBA player. And then in that game, he went on to absolutely explode. And then he and Rondé Hollis-Jefferson turned into like the most fun bench duo we've ever seen. And that team went on a crazy run, largely because the bench was awesome. And you had the moments of Kyle Lowry plus Rondé and Chris Boucher and another guy that we don't need to mention because he's a bad guy, going on a nice run. And like, that was like the turnaround point. I take credit for it, frankly. That tweet turned around Chris Boucher's career. So yeah, that was the moment that I became a Chris Boucher convert for sure. That one of the dumber things I've ever tweeted, that like, not one of the dumber things, I've tweeted dumber things, but like the quickest thing to become dumb was probably that, because I think it took a matter of 10 minutes for him to have like 3 blocks and a couple dunks. And then, that tweet just aged like really, really bad milk right out of the gate. Katie, do you have any more Chris Boucher things that come to mind? Have I jogged your memory at all?
I think I have another as like Chris Boucher's conduit for other people's moments, which is sad of me. But it's anytime, he did one of these aforementioned wild moves and you would have Jack Armstrong screaming bonjour.
Oh, yes. We're going to miss that time. Oh, I'm not sure Jack's vocal cords will miss that, but
yeah, they would always tear up by the end,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just like it's like you forget the longevity that he had with the team, right? And all these kind of eras he persisted through and still like played this his specific style of basketball through. And sure, maybe it wasn't consistent enough, but I would also argue that like behind him, the teams were also not consistent enough.
No, not at all. As it turns out, it's been a rough go here over the last 5 years or so. Yeah, I think the thing too with Boucher is like, you rarely get this kind of longevity from a bench guy. Like, it's usually, bench guys kind of cycle in and out. You have a year here, a year there. Maybe you get a couple seasons or you get a second contract for a bench guy. But like, just the way the league is constructed, you kind of have your starters or 3 or 4 guys you're built around, and then everyone else is just kind of a constant churn. For Chris Boucher to be on the Raptors as long as he was, and I mean, you saw the graphics yesterday from the team's social, like first in literally every counting stat off the bench in Raptors history. Like, that's a rare thing to get, and I think that's probably going to be a thing that we get less and less across the NBA going forward, is these like long-time beloved bench guys. Like the days of Nick Collison and now Chris Boucher like seem like they're kind of numbered with the second apron and just the sort of the very unfortunate structure of team building that seems to be the thing that Adam Silver really, really wants to be the thing, where there's no joy and just constant churn in the search of titles. But we might not see someone like this again for the Raptors, I think, is kind of the takeaway here. You either elevate yourself from bench guy to starter and become a mainstay, or you go find somewhere else to play. And for Chris Boucher to last as long as he did here, through multiple iterations of contracts, 2 ways, non-guaranteed, a fully guaranteed deal, all that stuff, pretty cool, pretty rare, and something we might not see again. We should also shout out, Katie, his role on the one good team since the title defense season that he was part of, which was the 21-22 season, where they won 48 games. And he was a big part of some of the craziest lineups ever. Like, he was part of the one time that Vision 6-9 worked, Katie. It was like Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher grabbing every offensive rebound, Scotty and Pascal, and like Gary Trent Jr. wreaking havoc on the league down the stretch of that season. I don't know if he gets remembered as like the biggest key contributor, because that was like the Scotty breakout season. Everyone was just like gaga for Scotty, but Boucher was a pretty big part of those years.
Was Boucher the inspiration for Vision 6-9? I wonder.
An interesting, he was it's
Like,
it's worth a
what
deep
if
dive.
if the front office was like, what if we had 5 of these guys playing at once and they were all consistent?
Right. Yeah.
Then what?
I would guess it's probably more Scotty and Pascal were the inspiration, but I'm open to a revisitation of this to determine whether or not maybe it was Chris Boucher all along who was the I guess like patient zero of Vision 6-9 brain. It's a worthwhile thing to go and take a look into. Katie, we're going to come back on the other side. I got a couple more mailbag questions, including one about Chris Boucher's jump shot and other weird-ass jump shots in Raptors history. We will do that to close things out coming up here in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, guess what? You're calling the next person and you're moving on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you're never missing those calls as they come in. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and text from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, so you can have some time off as well. Isn't that a nice thing when you run a small business? And their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads, so you never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. That's a big deal. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Go check them out. Closing things out here with Katie Heindl. We got a couple more mailbag questions tied to the departure of one Chris Boucher, who gave us a beautiful thing to talk about on August the 6th to fill a whole show. Thank you. One last parting gift from our guy, Chris Boucher. He could have signed in the middle of the free agency, pandemonium at the start of July, but no, he hung on till August because he is a real one. This one comes in from Nico asking, in memory of Mr. Boucher, again, he's not dead, but we've really framed it as though he is. Who's had some of the funkiest jump shots in Raps history? The trebuchet, yeah, is that how you pronounce it? Has got to be high on that list. I love this question. I love weird ass jump shots. Does anyone come to mind here, Katie, for you? If you don't have one, I can start.
I wish we used that nickname more.
Yeah. It didn't get used enough on broadcasts, I'd say.
Damn,
that's how you get it into the lexicon. Yeah.
That's great. No, I can't think of anyone right now.
Okay. I will say a couple of big men who figured out how to shoot threes, sort of, not really. Amir Johnson and Jonas Valanciunas. Amir Johnson, like, if
was Amir's wasn't so weird. JV's was weird, but I don't know about Amir's.
So Amir's was if Chris Boucher is the trebuchet, I would say was the catapult the previous, like, the very slow to load and launch and reset catapult. That was kind of Amir Johnson. It was like the sort of first step in that technology tree in the Civ games. Was Amir Johnson letting that three go, taking like 9 seconds to just like fire it up and get it up. And Jonas Valanciunas, just more of the pump fake than the actual shot itself. The pump fake just being so pronounced and getting guys to bite, even though, like, are you really worried about Jonas Valanciunas taking a three? Are you? Like, Boban, I remember, got like completely duped by it once in a game I was at and got dunked on. That was pretty fun. I think it might have been 2 guys in the same game that I'm thinking about it. Drummond also on the Pistons back in the day. But yeah, those are pretty funky jump shots. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson had a weird ass jump shot. That was bizarre.
Gasol had a weird one, but he never jumped.
That's a really good. Yeah, that's a good point. It's not a jump shot. It's a stationary
just kind of like
shot, like the
flung
60s
it.
or 50s. Yeah. Gasol's a really good one too. It's a bizarre looking shot.
I have kind of a contentious one.
Okay.
It's DeMar DeRozan, and I like his shot very much, but he does that thing where he jumps. I mean, I like it because it sort of like messes with physics. Like, it jumps and it seems like he hangs in the air for a little bit, and then he almost contorts his body into a V.
Yeah.
Like, his legs tilt out, and so does the upper half of his body when he makes the shot. But it looks, it's signature. I like the weird look of it, but it is a signature look.
Definitely. That, I think, another signature looking jump shot, and again, not a weird one, and someone we might talk about it with the next mailbag question, is Norman Powell. Just like the elevation he got on his jump shot is very pretty. like very opposite of Chris Boucher's, but just like, you look at you could see like you could see like the shadow image of that jump shot, the mocap of it, and you'd say that's Norman Powell because of the elevation he got on it. Quickly combing through some all-time Raptors three-point guys. Chris Boucher not Chris Boucher. Corey Joseph had a weird three-point shot, kind of slow to load. I think Louis Scola in his 1 year where he learned how to shoot threes with the Raptors, that was pretty fun. Another slow loader. But yeah, Chris Boucher probably goes down as like the most unorthodox and strange jump shot we have ever seen from a Toronto Raptors player, unless they can go sign Michael Kidd-Gilchrist out of whatever league he's playing in now to, kind of take up that mantle. Shout out Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, a guy I did not think I would talk about on today's show. The Raptors also used to employ Sean Marion, so he has to be mentioned here as well.
True.
That thing in a video game was weird. It like threw you off. It was hard to mess with. Let's go. Last question here from Jeff Exelon asking, many ex-Raptors have new contracts and new homes or both now. Which ex-Raptor do you expect to have the best year for their own personal reputation? Fred VanVleet, Norman Powell, Gary Trent Jr., Chris Boucher. I think we can lump Pascal Siakam in here because he's kind of going to be the dude on the Pacers this year with no Tyrese Halliburton. Ex-Raptor who's going to have the most transformative season for their reputation. Katie, who you got?
I've got to go with Norman Powell, actually, because I think the Heat are due for a transformative year. I don't know that they'll have it, but nothing really functionally has changed about that team besides Norman Powell. You know what I mean?
Right.
Do we believe in Tyler Hero more? Not really. Bam, I think, consistently good, like gets overlooked, but he doesn't necessarily have that kind of the more like showboaty sidekick.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Norm's never been a huge showboater, but I think he is a very functional workhorse. So I think he'll do really well, with the Heat. Maybe he gets a little bit flashier. Fred is another one, but I'm kind of like looking at the Durant of it all.
Yeah.
When I think about
he's going to look excellent next to Durant, I think. It's going to be hard for him to not look awesome there.
Yeah.
God, I hate how good the Rockets are going to be. Ime Udoka does not deserve this.
You know what? I don't think they're going to be bad, but I think I'm factoring in maybe more growing pains than you are.
That's fair. I do think they're sub Nuggets for me. Still in the West, I think the Nuggets are going to be incredible.
Like an adjustment period. Yeah.
Yeah. It's but yeah, I think Fred's good. Honestly, this is not someone who I've ever been like super keen on as a basketball player, but like Gary Trent Jr. is probably going to be asked to be like the third best player on the Bucks this year. He's going to get a ton of opportunity. Will it matter?
Depressing.
It is pretty grim, no doubt about it. But I'd rather root for him than Kevin Porter Jr. To have a nice big breakout this year for sure. How is Kevin Porter Jr. playing in the NBA? Who's to say? But GTJ, he had a nice season this past year. He still didn't get paid as a result of it because, that type of player is just maybe not super valued by the league anymore. But he's going to have a lot of opportunity. Maybe he can play himself into some more money next summer when there's a little bit more cap space around the league. Being a shooter playing next to Giannis Antetokounmpo, not a bad way to find some success, assuming the shots go in, which is obviously a bit of a hit and miss proposition sometimes with Gary Trent Jr. Katie, we're going to leave it there. This was lovely having you back, and I guess having me back. You were doing the show with Vivek while I was gone and doing a wonderful job, I should say. But yeah, great to reunite, have a chat about our pal Chris Boucher. Anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
No, sorry everyone for my lag. My video lag, if you're watching. It's really messed with my head watching me do it.
Yeah, I'm curious as to whether or not, like, once we render the video, if the lag will go away. If not, sorry for the lag.
Sorry for the lag.
Probably on my end because I have an old busted computer that I got to replace. But we will leave it there. Basketball Feelings, go subscribe. Go give Katie money because Basketball Feelings is the best. Exit's still going on. I was gone for 6 weeks, but I am still your number one hype person, Katie.
Thanks, my man.
You refuse to promote your damn stuff. Either way, we'll be back again on Thursday. I might have a guest. I might go solo where we're going to kind of do the opposite of what we did last week with Mike Pina, where last week we dug into, the case for optimism with the Toronto Raptors. I'll dig into tomorrow, the reasons why things might go horribly awry this year. I don't think they're necessarily likely, but they're certainly on the table. We'll do that to close the week off on a doomer note, baby. In the meantime, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. We will talk to you again on Thursday. Another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Goodbye. Damn it.